Hey everyone, today I'm talking about First Rat, which is a board game designed by Gabriele Osiello and Virginio Gili. This one takes 30 to 75 minutes to play and accommodates 1 to 5 players. A game of First Rat is going to look like this when it's set up, where you've got this big board here, made up of this track down the centre, which is all the different steps you need to take in order to get to the spaceship at the top here. So each player is going to have a group of rats of their colour, some of which are going to start at the bottom of the track and some of which are going to have to be unlocked a bit later to start joining in that race. And this game does have a degree of racing to it, but there are lots of different ways you can score victory points, so that's not the only thing you need to focus on. You've got a bunch of different resources to the side of the board here, such as cheese, which is almost your currency. You've got this rotten cheese here, you've got these 3-point tokens, you've got baking soda, you've got vinegar, and you've got these tins of peas here as well as these calculators, which can become very useful in later turns. Each player is just going to have their own little player aid here to show the different phases of the game and how things work. Now you can also see around the kind of edges of the board here, you've got these different score tracks which will monitor how the points are scored throughout the game and distribute points at the end of the game, and these all relate to a different scoring criteria. So for example, in order to score these 8 points, I want to be the first player to donate a tin of peas and 2 calculators. Whereas if I wanted to do this one here and be the first to do it and get 9 points, I'd have to do two boxes of baking soda and 5 bottles of vinegar. And obviously the slower you do that, you're going to start getting fewer and fewer points. Each player's turn is going to consist of up to 4 phases, 2 of which are mandatory and 2 of which are optional, and they're all very simple in their own right. So the first thing you're going to have to do is to move 1 or more of your rats. So if you move 1 rat, then you can move them up to 5 spaces. So you can go like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and end there, for example. But there are other ways where you can move multiple rats at once, up to 3 spaces. So let's just say in a next turn, it's Yellow's turn again. I could go 1, 2, 3 and move my rat there. And the other one I could move onto here. So there are restrictions on this one where you need to end on 2 different spots of the same colour. And later in the game, when you start unlocking more rats, you can even do that with up to 4 rats, as long as you end on the same colour of a different spot. If you ever end your movement on a space or spaces with your opponent's rats already on there, then you need to pay each of those opponents a piece of cheese. So you need to make sure you have a bit of cheese in your supply to have the options to land where you want to land. So once you've finished moving your rat or rats, you are going to have a look at the spaces you've just moved to and take the corresponding reward on that spot. So there are loads of different rewards you can get. So the first of which is going to be cheese. So this one's going to offer you 1 cheese, but the further you get up the track, you can get more and more cheese, the 2 or the 3 or the 4. And you've also got all the different resources, such as the baking soda, the vinegar, the calculators, the further you get up, and those tins of peas as well. And we'll talk about what they do very shortly. Additionally, you have these light bulbs here, which will move your little light bulb up this light strip, which is like another track on the board. So let's just say the yellow player ended up moving here. They would move their piece 1 up on the light tube there. But the more you do this, is going to be quite important, because each spot you go up is going to increase the yield of resources from anything below it on the track. So let's say in a future turn the yellow went to this spot. Because their light bulb is higher up on the track, they're going to increase the output by 1. So therefore this one would now offer 2 cheese. Additionally, when you move your light bulb to these spots here, you are going to take your next available scoring cube and put it on the next available spot on the little scoring track here, which corresponds to those light bulbs. So you've got the opportunity to do that 3 times, because there are 3 of these light bulbs on the way. This one here, this one here, and this one here. So not only are you incentivized to increase your yield by moving that light bulb up, but also you're going to get a lot of points if you do that fairly quickly. You can also see that some of these spots have these apple cores on them, and that is going to correspond to a different track here at the bottom of the board. So for each apple core that you land on, for example, the green player might have 3 here, you are going to move your rat from this section the number of spaces equal to the apple cores you've just landed on. So this will be 1, 2, 3. And when you do this, you're always going to go around in clockwise order. However, whenever you come to one of these kind of cross sections where you have the ability to turn right, you're going to have a choice to make. The first of which is to keep going and go to the next spots. The next of which is to turn right and go up that track. Again, taking the action for each spot you go on. So when you go up this one here, and you cross this little gateway, you are going to have the option to take one of these comic books and get a permanent ability for the rest of the game. So for example, this one here might say, I no longer need to pay a fee of cheese when I share a spot with somebody else. This one means that I don't have to pay these fees when I take these tunnels, these shortcuts. This one here means that I can treat greens as oranges and oranges as greens, so I'm a lot more free to land where I want to with my rats. Or this one here means that I can pay or donate less when I contribute to the spaceship, but still get the points, which I'll touch on shortly. And this one here means that when I move multiple rats, I can move them a further spot. So the second little hole here, when I turn right and go past that area, you're going to take your next available rat and add it to the bottom of the track, so you've got more things to move and play with. And the final one is when you come up here and you cross this section, where you simply add your next scoring cube to the track. So this is going to be a nice way to gain points if you focus on those apple cores. So once you've moved your rat or rats and taken your rewards, you're going to have two optional things you can do. The first of which is to go shopping. So you can see here that some of these spots have these arrows on corresponding to these little critters here. So you've got this like hamster chap, you've got this frog up here, and you've also got this crow at the top here. And they are going to offer you the chance to buy goods from them, costing an amount of cheese. So this one here, we'll see it will cost you 6 cheese in order to buy one of these backpacks, and these will increase your yield of resources. So this one, for example, when you end up on cheese, you're going to take an extra 2 cheese in total, or light bulbs, or these apple core movements, or even the additional resources. Now, if you don't want to spend that cheese, you can actually choose to steal the goods from that hamster. So let's say the green player really wanted this backpack here with this cheese on, but they didn't have enough to buy it. They can actually choose to take the reward, but they go right back to the start, but they still get the benefit from that backpack. So that's quite a good option to take. The next of which is the frog up here, which corresponds to this spot, and it will cost you 7 cheese. And this will give you the option to buy one of these energy drinks. And this will double the output of the resources you land on once for a particular turn. So these are going to give you a good bunch of resources should you get a good move. And the final one is to go speak to the crow here by landing on this spot, where you can trade in 12 cheese, or of course steal it if you want to, in order to buy one of these bottle caps, which will increase your endgame scoring based on other things that you focused on throughout the games. So the final thing you can do is to donate cheese or resources to the spaceship. We did touch about it briefly at the start of the video, where you can choose to trade in all these resources and get the next available spot. So again, you can build like the cockpit or the different areas. And once you build them all, then you can place your cube on this spot here to kind of contribute, or just to give you extra reward or incentive to do everything, where you get even more points for doing so. You can also optionally donate cheese to build up your food reserves. So you can trade in 10 cheese in order to get the next highest amount of points. And the other way you can score points is to get right to the top and reach the spaceship, where you land on this wild spot here, which will actually choose the colour that you want it to be that round. So if you ended up here and you chose blue, you can move all your other rats to a blue space. So it gives you a bit of freedom to do what you want to do. As usual, if you reach that top spot, you're going to place your cube on the next available space, which can give you a big points outpour if you choose to focus on that. But you also get to choose one of these bonuses, the first of which is to take one of these little nuts here to get you an additional 3 points for the end of the game, and the other of which is to unlock your rat that are still in the little reserve here and move them onto the track. So it gives you a way to bypass unlocking them using the traditional method of going around the track here. And something I didn't talk about earlier is if you land on a space with somebody else and you do not have the funds in order to pay them cheese, then you're going to be forced to take one of these mouldy cheese tokens, which will score you negative 2 points at the end of the game, but you do get a little intake of 3 cheese for doing that. I also didn't touch on these shortcuts here. You can see that are spread throughout the board, and these work just like they would normally, except you have to pay a fee to go through them. So let's say the green player really wanted to land on this baking soda here. They could go 1 and they could go 2 up here, but they'd have to spend the resource depicted on that particular shortcut. And there we have it. That's the first rat. You're going to keep on taking those turns until somebody has placed 8 of their scoring cubes, and then you're going to play finish the round and go for another round, or until somebody has placed all their rats onto the spaceship at the top there. And of course then you're going to calculate all the different scoring criteria, and the player with the most points is going to be the winner. So let's share some thoughts on First Rat. So generally I don't play a lot of family weight style games. I tend to have a personal taste of more involved games, your slightly drier Euro with slightly more going on in it. But that being said, when I saw that Virginio Gili's name was on the box here, he's one of my favourite designers. I was instantly intrigued and thought, this is definitely worth a look at because this guy knows what he's doing. So, and that is definitely turned out to be the case here, because this game does strike a very nice balance between being a very simple rule set with a quite cool movement system, but having a lot of things to think about. So I do like the core system here of, either moving one rat or multiple rats a number of spaces as long as you land on the same colour, but different spots, but bearing in mind that you need to have that resource in your back pocket in order to share spots with other people, being that cheese, because there is a good back and forth with that resource here. But I do like the way there is that kind of constant tension of wanting to do everything first, because you do get quite a significant or healthy amount of points more than if you're slower to do it. You want to be the first player to contribute all the different resources there, because you're going to get 8 points rather than the standard 4. And at the same time, you might want to do them all quickly, because then you can get the bonus points here at the top. And at the same time, you want to be making sure you're getting cheese, not only because then you would have the freedom to go where you want to and share spots with other people, but because when you get to these little helpers here, you can get those constant kind of engine building benefits by making your output more efficient and getting your rats up the track even quicker than you would before, maybe giving those tools to get the shortcuts, etc. And then at the same time, you want to do the other things as well, such as going up the light track, because the light track is going to constantly improve the output of the resources at the bottom, but at the same time, going to give you points based on the checkpoints you meet on that light track with these big lights as well. So again, so many different things to focus on, and we've not even touched on the other things, such as actually reaching the top of the track in the first place, which is going to be a great way to bypass spending time on the apple core track here to unlock more rats. So there is a ton of different things to explore here, loads of paths to victory, and it's quite cool that, despite the race aspect of the game being a strong part of it, you do not actually need to do that to win the game, because there are so many different things you can focus on, and maybe trying to find a niche that nobody else is going for is going to be a big part of the game. Now, I do love the kind of pacing of this game. I think that's probably one of the strongest parts of it, because I must admit, when I first started to get this one playing, and take our first couple of turns, I was thinking, this is going to take a long time because we're not really getting anywhere. We've already had quite a few turns. But then you start to understand how important these little engine benefits are, not only from these backpacks and things, or from the energy drinks, but from the comic strips as well. These are very strong and all worth having. Having the ability to just take any shortcut you want without paying the fee is massive, or having that freedom and flexibility to use greens as oranges or oranges and greens, brilliant as well, or making cheaper donations and things. So these are all so strong. But at the same time, if you're going to take them, you are probably going to forsake other people doing other things. If somebody ignores this and keeps flying around the track and getting these points here, that's something you need to consider. So it all is give and take. You want to gain something, you're probably going to have to sacrifice something else. And I also did like that choice of when you get the action or the ability to shop for these resources or these backpacks and energy drinks and things, you do actually have the option to spend that money and keep your rat on the track, and maybe keep them heading towards that spaceship to get those points. But at the same time, you're not restricted to that, because cheese it's not that free flowing. You do have to work quite hard to get it, or focus a turn or two to really stock up that amount. But you can choose to pay it if you want to and keep your space on the spot, or you can just choose to, just say, I'm going to steal that item, still get the benefit from it, but move right back to the bottom. But that kind of ties back to me thinking that the pacing of this game is great, because when you get to the bottom, although it feels like, I'm starting again, but by that time, your light track is going to have travelled up further. So that means that you're going to start getting resources a lot quicker than you would before, which again makes it more likely that you can start speeding up the track quicker and start making more donations. The time investment for this game is pretty much on the money for me. It does take around an hour to play, maybe a bit longer with an initial teach if you're playing with that 4 or 5 player count. But the fact that you can play this at 4 or 5 players and still get a very snappy and engaging experience is good, because normally when you start leaning towards 5 player games, they start to get a bit drawn out. Maybe you wait a bit too long for your turn to come around again and you start losing a bit of interest. I didn't find that to be the case in this one at all. Again, mostly you're just going to be moving your rat and taking the resources. And even if you do have those additional options of spending something to get one of the score points on the score tracks or going shopping, there's still literally decisions that will take seconds. So again, not really much scope here to lose interest. I think the replayability is surprisingly good actually, because there is a reverse side of this board where you can actually choose to place these modular tiles here to make the board different each time. So that's going to change the game quite a lot and just change the way you move your rats. But additionally, most family weight games for me, they do have a glass ceiling to them. They're normally a bit too simple for my tastes, and I kind of just go through the motions and just play them and see what happens. Whereas this one, at least you have to be on the ball and there are so many different things you need to focus on. And I like the fact that it's just not one or two ways to score points. Definitely makes you want to come back and play it again. The player interaction is a big part of the game, not only because you want to make sure you have enough cheese to share spaces with other players, but also because everybody is fighting over those maximum amount of points from all the different categories. So again, there's that tension to get everywhere first, a tension to get to the best player powers, because you want them. But again, if you choose something, you're going to be neglecting something else. So yeah, I do like the way there is that turn angst and lots of different ways to score points, and you're competing constantly over the best options. I think the production for this game is absolutely fantastic. The idea and concept here, the theme and setting is so good, because not only does it appeal to children, of course, because it's got that kind of cute and silly theme to it, but it's not cute to the point where it's going to be a deterrent for other people to play as well. You can happily play this with a group of gamers, all adults. We played this the other day, we're all in our 30s, and we had no issue with it at all. We thought the setting was charming. The actual idea of the rats building the spaceship and contributing all these different tin cans and things to build their little spaceship and things. Very, very cute theme, and it works very well for the game. All the components themselves look fantastic. The cheese looks good. All the resources are all unique and all cut out to specific shapes, like the little vinegar bottles and calculators. Just very well executed, and I can't really have any complaints about how it works. The artwork itself is very good. Again, not too cute, but cute enough to be enjoyable. And all the wooden pieces look fantastic, like your big rats have a good presence on the board. Your little kind of top-down bird's eye view rats as well, going through the tunnels, looks great. And the player aids are really good, so really have no issue at all. In fact, full props to a very well-produced game here. Okay, so final thoughts on First Rat. So I did take a bit of a speculative punt on this one, pretty much based on the fact that it did have Virginia Gilli's name on the box, and it did get a moderate amount of buzz on the BGG forums, at least for a short period. But I'm very glad that I did give this one a go, because again, it does strike a very nice balance between being very easy to learn and understand, but having enough going on to enjoy and be satisfying. And those are the kind of gateway or family weight games that I enjoy personally. A lot of them I find I pretty much rinse and repeat, doing the same thing again and again, but with slight variations. This one, it feels different. It feels like this one could be a hit. I think a lot of people could enjoy this one because it does have such a broad appeal, really. Not only because of its visual design, but because the actual mechanisms themselves are strong. They're functional. Everything works the way it should work, and there really isn't any lulls in the gameplay. It feels like you're constantly getting better and faster, and it does have a good crescendo for things getting gobbled up quickly. So yeah, I really haven't got that many complaints at all. I'm not going to say it's the best game of all time, because it's not. But if people wanted to play something a bit lighter, something that isn't going to be so involved, have a good kind of versatile player count you can play this one with, then this is such a solid option. And I think this one has all the kind of recipe to be a big hit. I can see this one blowing up this year, and I hope it does, because it deserves it. It feels fresh, it feels different, it's got a good kind of rushing aspect to it, but you need to just stop back and think sometimes, what is the best way for me to go down? So many different paths to victory, and just wonderful production as well. So yeah, I really can't not recommend First Rat, really. I think a lot of people could enjoy this one, and I think it's deserves a shield of quality. And again, I think this one is going to blow up in 2022, and I hope it does. So that is First Rat.